to propose to amend the bill and keeping in, taking out, I'll do that, that's a shorter list, taking out section 5, section 9, 10, 11, 15, and 16, and to amend section 8 with the department and Ms. Broom to get at the more flexible language that Mr. Saucier was discussing. I think that makes sense to me. And then I think, I've heard everyone's concerns, and hopefully this amendment will put us in a better position.
So where we stand now, so let's make sure, Anna, can you tie those to the various report that you have, not necessarily to the legislation, because I think many of us are working off the OPLA report.
Well, I'm going to bring up the bill again because I do think it's easier to look at the bill, and maybe I should have just done it that way. So what I'm hearing from Representative Millett, and you feel free to leap in if I miss something, Representative. So you already talked about the services and supports. So that's sections 1 and 2. 3 and 4 don't actually matter particularly. In fact, you wouldn't need 3 and 4 because you're getting rid of 5. So 5 was one of the ones that she said that she would take out, and that's the part with the monthly. And then 6 I heard staying in, and that's the one that has the median length of time on the waiver. 7 is the quality metrics and data collection from the stakeholder groups in G and H. And then section 8 is the one that you all just talked about, that the sponsor said to make more flexible. Then 9 would be removed. That's the 4-year waiting list, and 10 is related to that. That's the savings part that the director just mentioned is unclear what that would mean. 11 is the promote self-determination, least restrictive. So that was another one to be removed. And then 12 is the services and supports. 13 is the ability to have a bill in a year. And then 14 is the rights section that we talked about. She would also propose to keep. And then 15 and 16 you already mentioned. And she's got her hand up, which makes me think I missed something.
No, I'm sorry. I'm on my iPad and I keep forgetting I have to lower it because I don't see it.
Well, that's good. That's better than me missing something.
All right. So we have a motion on the floor, ought not to pass, that's been seconded. The question now becomes, with the changes that you've heard about, Senator Moore, do these constitute a friendly amendment? Are these something that you'd be wanting to include in your version of as amended or not?
Senator Claxton, I would like to hear from the department and hear what their comment would be about this amendment before I change my motion.
Sure, sure. And can we go to Representative Zager first and then to Director Saucier? Yes. You're on mute, Sam.
I defer. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to hear as well.
Okay, Representative Saucier.
I really appreciate the sponsor's offer, and if she would also consider removing 6 and 14, I think the remainder is something we could support.
May I, Mr. Chair?
Sure.
So I guess what I don't understand is if the department is already posting quarterly information. So I don't understand why this would be such a huge additional burden, and if that would be helpful for me.
My preference would be, we do intend to keep publishing quarterly wait lists, and we'd be happy to work with Representative Millette on acceptable language. There are issues with both Section 5 and Section 6, but I think we could come out with something, again, less specific, quarterly waitlist language, et cetera. For example, in Section 5, it says service on the first day of the month. We might find in our data system that a different date of the month is a better point in time, and it would make no difference to all of you, I'm sure, if it were the 1st or the 15th. That's a level of specificity that just ties us up in knots. On Section 6, I have real concerns with both median and high and low wait times, because we have a lot of people on the wait list who are there for good strategic reasons. They're still receiving children's services until 21, and they're planning for the future. It's going to show that they're waiting for 3 years. It will distort the numbers. Or we have lots of people on 29 who are on the 21 wait list planning for 5 or 10 years out, but they know the wait list is long. So that wait time is a very misleading statistic, and that would be my concern there. But we'd be more than happy to have some kind of, less detailed quarterly reporting of wait lists, and happy to work on that language.
And could you stipulate that the intent of the reporting was to understand the status of the wait lists and how we were doing quarter over quarter?
Yes. I mean, the other aspect of quarterly versus monthly is it doesn't move much in a month, but it does move in a quarter. So I think quarterly is plenty in terms of frequency.
Okay, and you
So-
also spoke to, go ahead, Representative Millette.
Yeah, thank you. So just to be clear, I did suggest removing Section 5. And the purpose with Section 6 is that we are, and certainly I remember sitting with Mr. Saucier and having my brain explode when he was trying to explain to me the intricacies of wait times on various lists. But this is at the heart of a lot of the struggles that our families and the clients are facing. And so I definitely would be willing to work with Mr. Saucier in coming up with language that would help develop information that provides meaningful insight for policymakers and others as to what's really going on. And I believe, after having met with Mr. Saucier, that information is out there. It's just a matter of distilling it and making it available.
Okay, and you also spoke to 14, Director. Could we take a look at Section 14?
Yeah, this, as the analyst has pointed out, I mean, it doesn't fit well. It's a very different kind of language. And to be honest with you, I just don't understand what it wants us to do. It's kind of like get up in the public square and say that, low reimbursement rates are bad. I mean, you could make that statement yourselves in the legislation if you wanted to. It's just so unclear to me what the purpose is here, other than to try to force the department to say something. And I don't think it has any impact.
Representative Millette, did you have a response to that?
Yeah, I can see that, and I think it's something that this committee and the legislature as a whole has really come to understand, that it's not just sufficient to appropriate funds for waitlists, but that the reimbursement rates are so critical to being able to make progress on those waitlists. But for now, I'm okay with taking out Section 14 if that helps get these other parts in moving forward.
Okay. So does that address your questions, Senator Moore?
Well, I am. As long as I understand that the department would be fine with the fact that we're going to work with the department on section 6. So I agree the medium time frame does not work. Date on the median time, in my opinion, doesn't work. So if Representative Millett is willing to work with him on that, and we're also removing section 14, and the department is okay with the rest of it, then that does address all of my concerns.
Okay, Representative Meyer?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, if those changes were made to 6 and 14, I could support this as well. And I am wondering where Representative Perry has landed.
I'm feeling better. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So that would require you to consider your motion on not to approve, Senator, ought not to approve,
Yes.
whatever that is, whatever, ONTP.
All right, I would change my motion to be ought to pass as amended.
With the understanding that there are several sections to be reworked and reviewed at language review, and
Right.
that significant sections have been eliminated.
And also with the department's approval. That's really critical to me, very
Okay.
critical.
I think we're all still on.
Okay, so that, and who was the second on
Which-
Senator Morse?
Second.
Okay, so that's been moved and seconded. Are we comfortable proceeding to a vote? I don't see any objections. Then the motion currently on the floor is ought to pass as amended with some language changes coming. Do you have enough direction and specifics, Anna? Okay. So Ms. Withy, can you do that report before we take a break for lunch?
Representative Zager.
Yes.
Representative Zager, yes. Representative Lemlin.
No.
Representative Lemlin, no. Representative Stover.
Yes.
Representative Stover, yes. Senator Baldacci. Senator Baldacci is absent. Representative Perry.
Yes.
Representative Perry, yes. Representative Griffin.
Yes.
Representative Griffin, yes. Representative Connor. Representative Connor is absent. Representative Craven.
Yes.
Representative Craven, yes. Representative Madigan. Representative Madigan is absent. Representative Javner.
No.
Representative Javner, no. Senator Moore.
Yes.
Senator Moore, yes. Representative Meyer.
Yes.
Representative Meyer, yes. Senator Claxton.
Yes.
Senator Claxton, yes. That's 8 yes, 2 no, and 3 absent.
And the minority report from the nays.
The simple on not to pass.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So Senator Millett, Representative Millett, sorry. You've been
No worries.
promoted.
Thank you, Senator. I just want to thank the committee for working this bill. I know how much you have before you, and also thank you to Mr. Sussy and the department for being willing to work with me. And with that, I'm going to shut up so you can all get some lunch, and hopefully you'll have a rest of a productive day.
Now that we've done a full day's work, but in lieu of quitting, how about if we break for lunch until 1 o'clock? Does that give people time to grab something quick? Okay. Unless there's a real objection, we'll take a break for lunch until 1 o'clock, reconvene and consider the remaining 6 bills. Okay, thank you, Director Saucier, for your work with this. And we'll see everybody at 1.
Cork, as he hobbled to a chair, saw her face go ashen.
And let's see.
Thanks, Sue. She hung up. She stared at the floor a moment, then raised her eyes, but avoided looking at anyone directly.
So it looks like we're assembled again. We can resume the work of the Joint Committee on Health and Human Services. We started this morning and are halfway through our morning agenda. And we'll be hearing later on a couple of bills. So where we left things was at the conclusion of a consideration of 4 bills. And now we'll move on to consideration of LD 1573. If Anna is ready for that.
Yep, I just have to find the right page. Okay. So LD 1573. So this is a bill from the Commission to Study Long-Term Care Workforce Issues that was established in the 2019 budget. And this is an emergency bill. So it directs the Department of Health and Human Services to establish a 2-year rebasing requirement to set and increase reimbursement rates for in-home and community support services. It requires direct care workers across the long-term care spectrum to be paid no less than 125% of the minimum wage. And that applies, the way it's written at the moment, it applies to main care state-funded programs, residential and in-home care, and the private sector. My understanding is that the committee plans to move from that, but that is the way it's currently drafted. It requires the department to adopt rules to take into account the requirements for that 125% of the minimum wage. Oops, sorry. It establishes, I'm sorry, I'm having trouble getting all the pieces to fit on my screen. It requires the department to adopt rules to increase reimbursement rates for main care and state-funded programs to take into account the cost of providing care and services in conformity with applicable state and federal laws, rules, regulations, training requirements, quality and safety standards, including increases from minimum wage, earned paid leave, EVB, background checks, and other types of costs that are not currently included. It establishes the Long-Term Care Workforce Oversight Advisory Committee to collect and compile data related to workforce shortages and services provided to clients, review progress by the department regarding recommendations provided to the department and the HHS committee, including the recommendations of the commission, identify barriers to implementing recommendations and making recommendations on proposals to address long-term care workforce shortages. And the Department of Health and Human Services, Labour and Education are directed to provide to the Oversight Committee quarterly reports on the progress and efforts to implement the recommendations of the Oversight Committee and the Commission. And the Oversight Committee must submit an annual report to the HHS Committee. So you heard during the public hearing, there was a request to move from the language of direct care worker to essential care worker. and who, just as a reminder, you have to think about who is included in that. And you had some requests to include behavioural health workers. What does the 125% of the minimum wage refer to? There were discussions about 125% of the minimum wage as a baseline for the labour portion of rates, and there were also a number of questions raised as to whether that was sufficient. And rates, you heard from the proponents that rates are set by the state, so they're not subject to the market forces, and so they end up being lower than other sectors of the economy. And you also heard about additional costs to providers such as paid time off and EBV. There are other recommendations from the Commission that are not included in the bill around training recommendations, increasing the number of adult day and respite hours allowed, raising caps for assistive technology and environmental modification, pooling workers, things like that. There was a conversation about the role of the Oversight Committee and requests for inclusion, for changing its name, and for advising the Department of Labour. And you had some questions from the department about the drafting of Section A1. This is the part about the rebasing, and whether their intent is to move from a fee schedule to cost settled, because providers they're not currently reimbursed that way. And if the intent is adjusting for inflation, that is similar to the comprehensive rate system evaluation recommendation that the department is dealing with right now. And some rates have been increased recently, others are higher than other state comparisons, and some are already benchmarked to Medicare. There was the question about who would enforce the 125% outside of main care, but as I said, I think I have heard that you're moving on from that. And there was also some opposition to establishing the Oversight Advisory Committee, given that the department is already working with stakeholders and the Main Care Advisory Committee. So I already mentioned the issue of the 125%. So I'm going to skip over that because that is drafted quite strangely. And then, but I do want to just sort of remind you about the local minimum wage issue, and that had come up as well. I don't know if the definitions of direct care worker still work if you're including behavioural health. This is not, I don't run the program, so I don't really know whether that is sufficient for the DD and autism world as well. The language is currently tied to activities of daily living and instrumental activities of daily living, so I don't know if that's broad enough or not. You would need to clarify that the rules being adopted by the Department for reimbursement, that they can only apply to main care and general fund programs, not all direct care worker wages, because that's currently bound up in that strange drafting, which was probably my fault originally anyway. And Part B of the bill establishes the Long-Term Care Workforce Oversight Advisory Committee to collect data on unstaffed hours and vacancies, the needs of direct care workers, reviewing quarterly reports from the department, DOL, DOE, on implementing recommendations of the task force and making recommendations to increase the workforce. There are several recommendations of the task force that haven't been discussed, and I don't know whether that means that you assume that they should all be implemented. For example, one of the recommendations of the task force was supporting rate setting commission legislation in the 129th, which was explicitly rejected by this committee. So it's just a little unclear to me how that would work together. There is no reference to who staffs the oversight committee and writes the report. And I just want to remind you about these department questions about the rebasing, because I don't want that to be forgotten. I did send you the executive summary of the Long-Term Care Workforce Commission, and also Representative Fay had requested the letters that came from this committee to the department during the interim. So you have those in your list as well. And I don't know if you want me to quickly go over the other bills, Senator, or not. The rate bills, if you were planning to do them all together, I can do it much more quickly than 1573, I promise you. But you're muted, so now I can't hear you.
That's right. All right. Yeah, let's hear about the other 4 bills, 5 bills.
Okay. So these are all the rates bills. So 283 is specific to sections 17 and 65 to increase reimbursement rates for daily living support services and any home and community-based services provided to children and adults by behavioral health professionals. This is drafted as 20%, and it requires that the increase in reimbursement rates must be applied to wages and benefits for employees who provide direct care services and not to administrators or managers. This is actually similar to LD 196, which is a 15% increase. It's actually not my bill, that one's Erin's. But this is the behavioral health piece that you have here. 878, which this is the one that was similar to LD 2109 and is currently drafted as a $2 an hour reimbursement increase. And this is the reason I think this is useful, and that I have italicized this bit here, is these are all the other sections of main care and state funded programs that involve direct care workers that are not behavioral health. So it's main care sections 12, 18, 19, 20, 21, 26, 29, and 96. And then the state funded home and community based programs or adult day, so 61, 63, 68, 69. And then the residential main care programs, which are 2, 50, 67, 97, Appendix C. So I just think that's useful to keep in mind that that's the world of the direct care side. And then 1157 is a bill that requires the department to increase its reimbursement rates to providers of home and community-based services to persons with intellectual disabilities or autism. So I take that to mean 21 and 29. And that's by the same amount that is required by the minimum wage law. So this is drafted in Title 26, where the minimum wage law is, and if a municipal ordinance increases other wage requirements in the ordinance, such as a requirement for time and a half, that amount of increase is also required. Actually, I don't know that it's in Title 26, but it's tied to Title 26. And then 1469, this is the resolve that directs the department to request a waiver from CMS to increase the rates for 18, 20, 21, and 29 by 25% from January 1st of 2021 to April 30th of 2021. So these are the Appendix K increases that you heard about, the 10% temporary increases that were in effect from March to May of last year. So that's those same sections, but it would be 25%. And then 1267 is Section 29 specifically, and that would be increasing the rates according to CPI between 2021 and 2020. And the sponsor also requested an amendment to include the CPI going forward. So I won't go through all the issues of the testimony because I think you know all of those. I do just want to make sure that you keep sight of the issue of who fits into these categories. This question about there is different language in different bills about the requirement to direct the increases specifically to direct care workers, and also the administrative burden is the other side of that. And then, of course, the rate setting evaluation, which is recommending rebasing every 5 years. And they're also exploring options of how to deal with the regional differences in requirements. And then you have a couple of fiscal notes. I won't go over those except that they are rather large. I think 878 kind of gives you an indication. That's only the $2 an hour, which I actually don't know how that compares to 125%. But so this is just the little chart across the bottom so that you can keep an eye out for the differences between all of those.
Okay, everybody, take a deep breath. Any thoughts in response to that analysis? Okay, so there have been conversations had about rolling up the increases into one bill, the rates into one bill. that doesn't directly translate to money to the direct care workers. We've been joined by Representative Fay, sponsor of 1573. Welcome.
Thank you, Senator Claxton. Nice to be here with you.
Do you have any, did you hear or have any comment or both to Anna's analysis?
I did. I heard Anna's analysis, and as always, I'm sort of amazed by all that goes into that. I just a little bit of background on 1573, which is when the bill came out very late, and what I made a decision to just bring it to the committee as is, and hopes that we can or that the committee can work on it and bring it up to snuff instead of trying to do a cycle 2 with the revisor's office. I thought that maybe the committee, in conjunction with your analysts, would do it justice. So that's kind of the background as to why it came to you in sort of a strange, with some strange language. And I would just say, I think the intent would be that any rate increases go directly to the workers, but would also include something, some of the other, I guess, payroll taxes or something like that, just to make sure that the rates cover the labor cost to the providers. I think that's kind of the most important thing. I mean, the goal is to really raise the pay for people in the direct care workforce across all of the sections. I mean, this committee knows you keep having all of these bills that, go piecemeal, and it seems to me to make sense to think about the work as opposed to the setting in which the work is being provided. And I hope that makes some sense to the committee.
And as I understand, these all came out of the commission that you participated in. And I understand Representative Griffin and Representative Stover also were active participants. So are there any elements of the recommendations from the committee? I'll direct this to Representative Griffin that you want to speak to that weren't included. That question was raised by Anna.
Sorry, I do not at this time, no.
Okay. Okay. I just figured in view of your service on the commission, we ought at least ask if there was anything else that maybe we'd left out. How about you, Representative Stover? Is there anything else that you'd surface?
Additional, thank you.
Okay, very good. All right. So Representative Fay, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, just quickly, I'm sorry. I did want to point out that Representative Griffin has a bill that was heard in Labor and Housing this morning, which also is one of the recommendations. So instead of putting them all in one bill, one of the things that we did this session was we noticed that some of the bills impacted the Labor Department, some impacted Department of Education. And instead of bringing them all to this committee to try to parse out some of those jurisdictional issues, the thought was that the labor related bills might go to Labor and Housing, and the rate in the HHS and the DHHS bills would come to you. So that's just a little clarification for you.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that. If from the perspective now of a few months from when this was introduced, are there elements of this that you think we should spend particular time on, eliminate, or otherwise address? Representative Fay. That was a question to you.
I wasn't sure.
Yeah, yeah. Sorry for that
Um,
ambiguity.
Could you repeat the question?
Yeah,
I'm
the
sorry.
question was from the perspective of a number of months now, and with the understanding that this was put together 4 or 5 months ago.
Yeah.
Would you, and the work well before that, are there elements of this that you think deserve particularly to survive? Some that could be eliminated? We're trying to get a handle on this, and we have limited time to do much work on it. So if you could help us focus, that would be a big help.
Sure. Well, I think the two big pieces in this bill are the rates and the Oversight Commission. And I would suggest that those are both still very relevant and important. The one thing that I think has become clear is the crisis is greater than it was. And one of the issues that we really identified, and I think, you know, the department is doing really good work thinking about these issues going forward, but we need some sort of bridge, and we need an increase now. Part of, I think, what we've learned is that there are market forces that that are in play that the rates don't necessarily take into account. So I think that's one really important piece. The other piece is, as I said before, making sure that we're not singling out particular sections and that we're thinking about the work as opposed to the people or the setting that are being served. So if you're helping someone with activities of daily living, you know, when you're working with someone with a physical or an intellectual or developmental disability, that those activities are similar. Additionally, for an older person, you know, the helping with the toileting and showering and those types of things are really the same, I mean, with some subtle differences, but the idea that we're paying people to do the same work differently causes some people in this already you know, short workforce to move from one section to another. So for instance, if we increase, you know, rates in section 19, then people might go over to the folks that are served by that section.
Sure, that's why we want to
yeah.
roll this up into one.
Exactly. Yep.
Can you speak to the status or the support for? I mean, there were I saw Senator Timberlake was on the committee as well as the two we've already mentioned. Was there general support for the Workforce Oversight Advisory Committee? Was that a unanimous recommendation out of the committee?
All of the recommendations that came out of the commission were consensus. And
okay.
So, and we talked a lot about each and every one of them, and that was really important. Senator Herbig was my co-chair, and it was really important to the two of us and to the, you know, the providers, the direct care worker and the others on the commission, that these recommendations be comprehensive. And
yeah, I just wanted to get a sense of whether that was by consensus or a tight split, because that's a big chunk right there, the advisory council committee oversight, whatever. And I get nervous when I see oversight because that would be in some ways delegating our responsibilities. So I want to understand that a little bit better.
Yeah. And I would say the word oversight, you know, that's maybe we could use a different word, but I think the goal is to keep an eye on the recommendations and make sure that they're moving forward. So we've had previous commissions that studied this issue that those recommendations landed on a shelf and never happened. And some of the folks that were on that commission in 2010 on that task force were also on the 2019 task force. And the thinking was that we really want to make sure that this stuff gets done and gets paid attention to, and having some outside eyes keeping an eye on that. You know, we don't meet right year round, and so what happens in the interim and maybe even could help lighten the load a little bit for this committee in terms of trying to keep an eye on that or make recommendations to you about what's happening. So I think that was the thinking behind that.
Could that be considered an indictment of prior HHS committees for not
No.
following up or pursuing that or getting that work done?
Not at all.
Well, I'm just trying to understand. I want to make sure that the fix fixes it as opposed to further institutionalizes the opportunity to not fix it. So I'm just trying to understand how that might work. And was there any discussion about how to push rate increases to and convert them into salary increases reliably?
I mean, I think you could do that with language, right? As you're saying, we're going to increase the rates, but that increase has to go to the wage portion of the rate.
Mm-hmm.
So in other words, we don't necessarily need to raise the
Mhm.
entire rate, but we need to raise the portion of the rate that impacts the worker. I think there might have been, as I was listening to Anna's analysis, there might have been something along those lines in one of the other bills.
There was some provision for some allowance for administrative costs for tracking compliance with moving that money into the right slot.
Okay.
Okay.
But I think the goal is to make sure that the rates go to the worker.
Yeah. Representative Stover?
I just wanted to support what Representative Fay said. As you know, we've had some discussions about the additional funding that'll be coming to our state. And 1.3 billion has been discussed as part of the governor's plan to fund nursing homes and hospitals, but there's no direct care portion of that that's going to address either the elderly or people with developmental disabilities or mental illness. So I think I just want to support what she's saying around the minimum wage and also rate setting in general. It's still a critical issue. Thank you.
Sure. Maybe Anna can answer the question I alluded to, but how easy is it for us to construct language that would push rate increases and convert them into wage increases?
I can write the language, but I don't run the program, so I don't really know that is, I don't know how that works. I know that there were some questions about administrative oversight and from both sides, the providers too said that they don't.
Yep.
I think Mallory said we don't have that language, but I see Molly with her hand up and I feel like she knows much more about this than I do. I know how to write it. I don't know how to enforce it.
Molly Bogart.
Would never say that I know much more than Anna Broom, but appreciate that. I have not had this conversation with Maine Care on this specific bill, but we have had other similar proposals in the past. And my understanding from Maine Care is that we are not able to require providers to pay a certain rate or certain percentage of their rate. The way that we increase rates based on income or on wages is by updating that factor in the rate calculation to say the expected wage is X. But we pay the rate to the provider and then they determine how to compensate their employees. My understanding is that we don't have the ability to require them to make a specific increase or pay a specific amount to their employees beyond what other state and federal labor requirements are.
And you mentioned specifically Medicaid reimbursed rates, but that also applies to the other state funded programs, right? You have contracts with entities to deliver state funded services?
Yes. I assume it would. I wouldn't want to speak without confirming that, but my understanding is that it would be the same challenge of the mechanism that we pay providers and then they pay their staff.
And we rely on market forces to push that money to the people who are hardest to hire. Yeah. Is your hand still up, Representative Stover? Yeah, well, I'll rephrase that. Your hand is still up. Did you want to say something? Okay. All right. Any other, any comments, questions at this point? I see we've been joined by Representative Libby. That's where I was going next. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. I actually am just here very briefly. I appreciate your committee's diligent work on the issue of the rate reimbursement bills. I know there are many of them, and I just wanted to, before I duck out to judiciary, reiterate that wherever the committee goes with these bills, I think it's really important to look at municipalities, Portland, that have a different minimum wage and make sure that that is accounted for in whatever moves forward in the process with the rate reimbursement, whatever that needs to look like to ensure that there's not a dearth of staff to work in that area. So thank you for your consideration, and I'm sorry to dart out, but I appreciate you guys tackling all of these bills.
Thank you for being here to share that perspective. Yes, we're all trying to be multiple places at once, so we can relate to that. All right. Any thoughts at this point? Any suggestions, questions? Molly, looks like you're lit up on my screen. Is that because you wanted to say something?
No, I'm not, and my hand wasn't up, so I'm not sure why that was, but we shared some feedback about the advisory committee, and I would be happy to talk more about that if and when you get there.
Okay, now's as good as any time since it's been brought off. And there's also the question about rebasing 2 to 5 years. So we'll have a couple questions for you. And who wants to speak to that? Is that you still?
I'm not your woman for rebasing, but I can.
Well, let's start with oversight. Let's start with oversight.
Sure. And I know Director Saucier is still here, as well as Director Montejo from licensing. But, I think from our perspective, we certainly welcome the accountability around the recommendations for the long-term care workforce task force. There was a lot of work that went into that. But we share the concerns that I think you sort of hinted at, Senator Claxton, around both delegating legislative authority here, but also creating another oversight body that has some nebulous authority over the work of the department. I think we have now a significant set of recommendations from that task force, and we would, we know that those task forces have happened in the past. We've had those recommendations, and for one reason or another, they haven't come through. And so in that respect, we agree that accountability is really important, but we also believe that the department should have and the departments, I should say, that impact this issue should have the ability to go and do that work and report back to this committee with jurisdiction over our department on the progress. We have a lot of discomfort with having a separate committee established to do that.
Any thoughts about how we might get the information and assure the follow-up that's necessary so that we don't end up with a new commission in 5 years with some of the same members still on it? Because none of them want to do that.
No, and I, this is work that I know our teams have been doing and are certainly committed to. And there are some new opportunities with the ARPA and other federal funds coming in to really, I think, jumpstart some of the workforce work that needs to happen. My thought would be, something like an annual report to the committee on the implementation of those recommendations. I think the advisory committee and the bill is envisioned to last for 5 years. So perhaps, annual reports for 5 years, and you would receive those reports and have the authority to report out a bill that, could either bolster that progress or redirect it if necessary. But that would be, in my mind, a sort of more traditional way of ensuring that accountability while also giving us the leniency to do the work that has been outlined by the committee.
Okay. Director Sussier, any other thoughts on top of what Molly's offered so far?
Just to reinforce, the ARPA funding has a lot of little things in it and some big things that we think can help really accelerate this work. And in order to use those funding sources, we will want to be opportunistic and kind of go with, some of the priorities. So I think we can make great progress over the next 5 years. Not necessarily in the order of the commission's report, but I do think it's a real time of opportunity. And we would certainly be looking to do that with stakeholders because, nothing's going to move forward without their active participation. So what Molly outlined is certainly very appealing to me. Sort of let us do our work. We'll work with stakeholders and we'll let you know once a year, in written form what our progress is.
Can you speak to the input that you get from stakeholders now for your portion of the department specifically?
So the piece that we have just organized around is the curriculum work, and we have not yet gotten to a point of formalizing a stakeholder process, but we would envision having workers and to the extent that we can get them, but also providers of these services. You may recall that the curriculum work involves essentially collapsing the base credentials for PSS on the long-term services and support side with DSP, the direct support professional, on the IDD side. So, that will definitely, both communities will be nervous. I mean, they're both supportive. They've both committed to participating. So we would see having an advisory committee that we would check in with regularly along the way as we implement those new curriculum requirements.
Okay. Any other input, thoughts, questions? So that addresses a bit the question about the oversight committee. What about rates? Can you help us understand the difference between 2-year and 5-year rebasing and what the department thinks about one versus the other?
Yes. So rebasing, and apologize if you already know this, but just to level set, rebasing is when you do an extensive cost study with an actuary and you're essentially looking at the costs from scratch over again because a lot changes in 5 years. And so the consultants that Main Care worked with in the past year on the comprehensive approach recommend what is very standard across the country, which is rebasing every 5 years. Then, in order to avoid having rates fall badly out of, become dated over that 5-year period, in the intervening 5 years, you do cost of living adjustments based on a labor index of some kind. I don't think that's been officially proposed by the department yet, but Director Probert has talked about that, and that is the direction that we're headed.
Good, because that's certainly one of the options if we're going to go to 5 years to make sure we don't get too far behind again so that we're not always catching up. Okay. I see we've been joined by Mr. Monteo. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Senator Claxon. I'm Bill Monteo, the Director of Licensing. I just want to kind of agree and echo what Director Saucier has already spoken about. And in providing you a report, some of the things that we can provide, certainly from licensing or from some of these recommendations, would be an explanation as to if they're not being implemented, why, so that there's an understanding. For example, there was a recommendation that suggested that licensing establish a work group to look at CMP funds or civil monetary penalty funds for workforce retention in long-term care. And that there's licensing's role in the CMP funds is actually, we are the ones that the parties apply to and review and make a recommendation to CMS, and we work actively and regularly with the Long-Term Care Ombudsman and the Maine Healthcare Association, which represents all the providers, on creating or identifying and creating programs. So we're actually already involved in this. We're just not, we don't establish a workforce or work group to do that level of work. In part because our responsibility to CMS is to review and recommend the approval process of the application.
And I just want to remind everybody from some conversation we had earlier this morning that a lot of the legislation that we're seeing now was put together in November and December, and circumstances have changed. And we're trying to anticipate, to a certain extent, worst case scenarios 5-10 years out, when people aren't as invested as current leadership or current department is in getting the work done in a consistent manner. So we're trying to be sensitive to that without throwing anybody under the bus, because I've not heard anything other than appreciation of what the department's doing currently and the work that's gone into much of this effort. So I just wanted to flag that.
Thank you, Senator. And a good example of this is early on in this pandemic, there was an identified need for virtual communication devices for nursing homes, and we worked collaboratively with Maine Healthcare Association and the Long-Term Care Ombudsman to provide funds to allow facilities and agencies to purchase this equipment through that CMP fund to increase virtual communication with residents in nursing homes.
So rats. The other question I had was about 125%. We just this morning spent a chunk of time rolling up the wait list resolution bills into one. We're trying to find a mechanism that would work to do similarly with the rates, such that we're not picking and choosing winners, because as I said this morning, we've got a long track record of not doing that well. Can you speak to the concept of 125% of minimum wage and how that might become part of your work for recalculating rates? Or are you the wrong person to ask? I'll let anybody jump in here who's got an answer.
I can just make a few comments on it.
Sure.
It does seem arbitrary, but I understand it's important symbolically. What it says is this work is worth more than minimum wage, and then you sort of pick a point. Whether that's based in a market analysis or not, I mean, I don't think it is. And I think that, part of the department's obligation to CMS on main care rates is to make sure that the rates are adequate to promote access. And so, but should that be 125%? Should it be some relationship to the median wage in the state? What should it be? Those are things that we're thinking about at the department, but we haven't landed anywhere in particular yet.
And some of what drives it obviously is the bruises that are out there in some people's minds with the people trying to provide services, literally bruises and figurative bruises in trying to make a dollar go further than it possibly can. So we're just looking for some sort of mechanism, and I'm not wedded to 125%, but it's a whole lot more convenient than the committee trying to sort out. It should be 38% here and 22% there and 12% there, because our track record is not good in that regard. Thank you for that input, Director. Representative Meyer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And we've heard scores of bills in last session and this on new and creative ways to get at rates and lift up this workforce to something that attracts and retains the desperately needed workers. And I think of all the many ways it's been proposed, I think that that the 125% of minimum wage makes the most sense. So that the wage portion of any rate established for essential care work across the settings, which is what we're getting at here, and I know we're going to talk more about, would be established at 125% of minimum wage. Plus,
State minimum wage.
right, plus state minimum wage. And then there has been talk as well about mandatory payroll tax and other benefits, mandated benefits that could be included in that.
And yes, Representative Zager.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I hear the concern that it's not a based on a scientific or market analysis. We have, however, heard all sorts of testimony. It seems that everyone is watching what Walmart and McDonald's are offering, or have at least testified as such, because I know that one's $14 and the other $16 an hour starting. And this minimum wage, well, 125% of minimum wage does not, it would put it in the neighborhood of that. So I guess in the sense that we've essentially the many bills that we've heard is a form of a market analysis based on what people bring in their testimony. I think this is heading in the right direction. Kind of like if we're lost in the woods and we don't know exactly where we are, or exactly where the exact direction, if we at least know generally the right direction, we're going to be less lost and could get out of the woods. So I think that we're on the right track, is I think what I'm saying.
Thank you. Representative Jabner.
And Representative Zager, Walmart is now up $17.50 an hour starting. How are we going to address the municipality issue with, especially, Portland, as we've heard it? How do we even begin to address that?
I assume that was a rhetorical question because I don't have an answer. No.
Well, perhaps someone from the department can address it, if they have looked at it at all. We've heard, I'm even from the Portland area, everybody knows, but I've heard from many people that they are having such difficulties, receiving services because of this very reason. So how do we move forward as a committee, knowing that is a major barrier for people to receiving services?
Any thoughts about how to handle a community that raises its minimum wage or adds to a minimum wage and creates hazard pay? I thought about doing it by zip code. Director Saucier?
Maine Care is engaging a consultant on this issue. It is an extremely complicated issue, but it is true that this exists in other states where a city usually has a higher minimum wage. So our hope is that we can procure a consultant that will bring expertise from how these are implemented in other places. Some of the issues, which I'm sure you've all thought about, is based on which address, the address of the office, which could invite, scamming from all around the jurisdiction, based on the employee's address or the work address or the client address. So lots of difficult issues with that one. And we feel like we need some expert advice from people who have dealt with this in other states.
Does that answer your question, Representative Jabner, or follow-up?
Yes, thank you very much, Senator Claxton. That's very good news. On that note, then, do you have a timeline of when that's going to be coming forward? Should we maybe table, Representative Libby's bill that deals with the municipalities so we can come back to that? Director Saucier, how would you have us move forward with that?
I don't know the specific timeline, but just given the nature of, procuring a consultant and so on, I'm guessing it will not help you in this session.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for that clarity. So Representative Craven.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to go back to the 125% of the minimum wage and when the state minimum wage started to go up, providers were not being reimbursed at minimum wage. And then obviously they had to pay minimum wage. And for experienced workers, there was that, you know, their salary was hovering around minimum wage, and brand new people coming in was making, you know, earning the same amount, and it got to be worse and worse. And so that's why people landed on the 125%, so that entry-level folks would get paid minimum wage, and people with experience would be able to retain, you know, their salary. Wanted to contribute that.
And it is somewhat arbitrary and not based on extensive financial resources and research, right? Yeah. Representative Lemelin?
Yes, thank you, Senator. The problem we have here is the minimum wage, and nobody's looking at that. I warned people 4 years ago that we were going to have a problem when they first started raising the minimum wage. It was at $7.25 an hour, and everybody said, well, that's a problem. And even within DHHS, et cetera, like we are now, we're saying these people need to be paid more than that. And so they moved it to $9 an hour. When they moved it to $9 an hour, and this is the testimony we had yesterday, everybody sat there and said, well, this is not enough. And they keep raising and raising the minimum wage. And the more you raise the minimum wage, the bigger the problem you have. For instance, the regular minimum wage is $7.25 an hour. When I own a small business like a Curves, and now minimum wage, I'll say I'm in Portland and it's $15 or $18 an hour, I have to pay my staff that amount of money. And when I do, they look at me and they say, you're only paying me minimum wage. Well, no, I'm not. Minimum wage is $7.25 an hour. Here in Maine, they granted us this $15 or $18 an hour. You're way above minimum wage. And you also hurt businesses like small doctors' offices, because when the minimum wage is at $7.25 an hour and I'm paying $16 an hour, I'm paying a good wage. And these people are saying, wow, that's the type of job I need, $16 or $18 an hour in a doctor's office. But now when you raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour, my 16, people look at me and say, well, you're not paying me as well as I thought. I'm at minimum wage. So we have the snowball effect here. We're hurting ourselves. And the problem isn't how we're going to change everything to meet Portland at 15 or 18 an hour, or if Bangor changes theirs, or if our president changes it higher. The problem is the problem, which is the minimum wage level. So, and even if we move people, I'll tell you right now, I'll prophesy for you on the record. Right now, if we agree to this 125% above minimum wage, which I'm not saying I oppose, I'm going to prophesy what's going to happen. By next year, those people are going to sit there and say, I can't live on this. And they're going to use that as an excuse to get us to add more money every year. And you just can't do this. Our society can't handle this. So there's no way that the 125, and my second and last point is, I promise you, all these organizations that have come to us and said, we need this much money, okay? Once they get that amount of money, I will bet you $1,000 that they will not get any additional people coming in and applying for those jobs. I promise it, mark my words. It's not the solution, but that's it. I just thank you for.
Representative Zager.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This committee may not, I don't think this committee is really entertaining a bill on the minimum wage. There's lots of matters that, lots of aspects that we could focus on, but this bill actually is indexed to the minimum wage, and I just would bring that up.
Okay. So, to go over some things we've talked about before, I heard some sentiment about the oversight committee and whether that might be reconfigured in the forms of regular reports and follow-up. So I'd like to hear from the sponsor about that idea.
And I'm even going to unmute myself. Thank you. So I think, you know, I appreciate the fact that the department is thinking about this and thinking about, you know, continuing this work and making sure that it's visible. I think, again, the terminology around what this group of people who's keeping track of what's happening is less important than having some sort of visibility to that work. So if there's a stakeholder group reporting things like unstaffed hours, you know, progress on recommendations, maybe with, I don't know, quarterly meetings or something, just so that everyone's on the same page and rowing in the same direction. I honestly, I'm not sure that it matters that much what we call it. As long as we're just keeping our eyes on what's happening. And I did want to actually thank Representative Lemelin for bringing up something, which is that raising wages is necessary to stabilize this workforce. There are people who are going without care that they qualify for, and that they that can help them live their most independent and best lives. And so it's about as much about the workers as it is about the people being served. But he makes a point, it's not the only thing that needs to happen. And that's why we have all these other recommendations and some work going on in other committees to talk about changing the way that we think about and value this work. So I think it's important to keep that in mind. I say necessary, but not sufficient to really solve this workforce crisis. But I don't think all the other work that we could do matters until folks feel valued through the pay that they're receiving.
So the idea of annual reports with some specific requested pieces of information coming to the committee with the option to write legislation in response. Would that meet your needs for the next 5 years? That was one of the proposals. Okay, so I hear some sentiment. Thank you. I hear some sentiment for that. Annual reports for the next 5 years with follow-up and the provision of the ability to write legislation. We've historically referred to that as the Perry Amendment, but so we can keep that option open. Are folks generally supportive of the idea of a COLA between rebasing? I see some head nodding. Yes. All right. How about understanding that 125 is imperfect and imprecise, but better than what we've tried to do in the past? Are folks comfortable with 125% of state minimum wage as a starting point for further conversations down the road? Okay. And what about rebasing? Director Saucier, can you speak to us and give us a sense of the costs associated with the rebasing exercise? And I understand it's been done every 2 years in some states and is manageable.
Yeah, I think the rebasing cost is, you know, the actuarial firm has to be involved in doing that. It's also, frankly, a burden on the providers because they have to supply survey data to the actuary, et cetera, about their costs. So 2 years is generally, you know, you've just finished one and you'd be starting another. It does not it's not, I mean, we're not comfortable with that. The 5 years is much more standard, and with the COLAs in the intervening years, then you address this problem of the rates falling badly out of date.
Okay. Representative Craven?
Thank you. So Mrs. Saucier, how often do you rebase the nursing homes and the hospital?
They are rebased more frequently than that, based on statutory provisions. But the part of what Myers and Stauffer recommended is to really take a look at how nursing homes are reimbursed, and that work will be done over the next 2 years.
Okay. So the other issue that this raises, and we'll have looking for some direction from the committee. If we're leaving the 125% in on this particular bill, how do folks feel? Because this one's focused on long-term care. What about the other sections? Do people want to roll other sections, protections at the same rate into this bill? Representative Meyer?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, that's the short answer.
That
I
is the
think
short answer.
yes, I think we need to clarify who essential care workers are, and come up with a definition that we insert into this bill or whatever vehicle we're using, and then a list of all of the main care and state-funded programs impacted by this bill and those workers. So I think we need to carve out a definition of who we're trying to get at, and then name those sections that those workers are providing care to.
And we can leave the decision about what bill that goes into until later, but now it sounds like the issue is definition. Representative Craven?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I think that essential worker is I mean, that's been used over and over during the pandemic. And when I go to the supermarket and I consider the people that work there essential. So I think that we should really choose another word to describe people who provide support to folks.
Do you have any suggestions?
Well, no.
Well, we don't
Not really, but it's I think that we should kind of like brainstorm and see what a better word, but more suitable word would be. Thanks.
Representative Meyer?
Thank you. Just to clarify for Representative Craven, I was using the term essential care workers.
And the other option is to not try and settle on a.
Going back to a bill we heard this morning, could we use support workers as opposed to just, care workers? I think, I forget what bill asked for more sensitive language to be used around that.
Representative Perry?
I was just actually wondering if we have used direct care worker, which means that's the worker at the bedside. That's the worker that is doing all of the, what we may call essential work. But I've always thought of that as the definition of those who are really closest to their client.
So in the definitions in this bill, it includes a direct care worker definition that implies face-to-face independent of where. Active ADLs or IADLs or has direct access to provide care and services to clients, patients, or residents regardless of the setting. So we have that definition. The question becomes, is that adequate? Representative Lemelin?
Thank you, Senator. I have two questions I think I need clarification on. Which workers are we talking about that get paid directly by HHS. I thought most of these workers go through, let's say, the nursing home, or they go through Maxims or one of these other organizations, and then they pay out their staff. So am I missing something here?
So the reason, help me, tell me if I've stated this wrong. I think the reason we're trying to clarify who we're talking about is because who is part of the formulation of the rates. And we need to be clear about the who it will apply to when you set up the rate for the nursing home or the residential care facility. Can somebody correct that if I've misstated that, please?
No, that's exactly what I'm asking, Senator, is because if Karen Comfort or one of these organizations or a nursing home, then I was under the impression that they get paid a certain rate and then they choose what rate to pay their workers. At least that's the way it works with, the nursing staff that used to come to my house. So I just need clarification on that.
Okay. Can somebody speak to the process of getting money from the state to the provider to the worker? Yes, Molly.
I saw Paul open his mouth too, so I'll give it a
Okay.
go, and Paul can correct me. But I think when we're talking about 125% of the minimum wage, what we're talking about is the wage component of the main care rate. And so there are a number of different components that calculate the rate that is paid out to providers. And so it is, like I mentioned before, it becomes a little challenging for us to say you must then pay 125% of the rate, but it calculates that as our assumption of what workers are paid, and then agencies, nursing facilities, providers are the ones who make those compensation decisions.
Yeah, so we're talking about rate adjustments, not wage adjustments directly. Does that begin to answer the question a bit, Representative Lemelin?
Yeah, that's my concern right there. That answered it. See, to me, raising it 125%, if we're paying it directly to the worker, I'm all for that. But if we're just giving Karen Comfort 125% and then they get to pay their staff whatever they want, and we're assuming that they're going to do the 125%, some of them pay more. I don't see the benefit there.
And and unfortunately, as I understand it, we don't have the ability, except in maybe a few instances. Well, let's go back to that. How many people, how often does it occur that a direct care worker is paid by the state directly? Yes, yes, Director.
It would only be in a state operated service, and we have very few of those. So we have the state hospitals, we have the correctional facilities, and then we have within ODES the state crisis workers. They're all certainly well above 120. I mean, it wouldn't apply to them because they're already paid more than that.
Okay. Thank you. Representative Zager.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I echo with what Representative Lemelin just said. I also have a question, just as a point of fact. Approximately what percentage of all the rate is the wage component? That may have been mentioned earlier. Forgive me if I missed that.
Anybody have an approximate number for that from the department?
I do not. I do not.
Okay. All right, Representative Meyer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to weigh in that we have heard from providers across the spectrum of care who have told us time and time again about their severe crisis level staffing shortages. And it's evidenced by, in large part, not wholly, but in large part, wait lists of individuals, seniors, disabled, waiting for services that they are eligible for because we do not have staff. And we do not have staff because they are going elsewhere to work so they can support their families and make a living at a higher hourly wage. So the providers that have come to us time and time again, pleading with us to help them to increase their workforce, to provide the services to our communities, to our neighbors, to our families, to our constituents. Should there be an increase in rates, it will go to the worker. It must, or they can't stay in business.
So we're talking about the wage portion of the calculation, and we have another expert has joined us, Ms. Maurer. Any input on this conversation that might help us move along?
Wow. I'll be very targeted. That's a big question, Senator Clark. Good morning. Good afternoon, committee members. It was morning when I joined you. I'm Jess Maurer. I'm the executive director of the Maine Council on Aging. Thank you for inviting me in. And I'm sorry that my dog is barking. I just wanted to say a couple of things. One is that I'm fine, by the way, with the suggestion of essential support workers. I think in some ways, particularly if we consider including behavioral health professionals and homemaker, folks all together, probably support is a better word than care. And so that's perfectly fine. The last question is around wages, and I'll underscore what Representative Meyer said. These folks are paying as much as they possibly can to their workers, and they are passing any additional funds they get because they can't compete for workers. I mean, it's a straightforward situation, and those that don't pay workers aren't going to get workers and aren't going to be reimbursed by the state. I mean, quite frankly, it's that kind of competitive market these days for workers. Our biggest concern remains beyond wait lists, just people who aren't getting served. So we've seen, as we've talked about, increases to the amount that theoretically rates should be paid in home care, and during the same period of time, we've seen the unstaffed hours double. And so, the question really is, what do we need to pay workers to make them competitive? And so I think the 125 is a good start. And I'll leave it there. I guess the last piece is around the stakeholder group. Totally fine with the department doing an annual report, but I would suggest that there needs to be some sort of, for instance, quarterly stakeholder meeting that is public, and folks have an opportunity to hear what's happening, to hear it collectively, not as one group, but not home care, not nursing home care, not assisted living, but to hear it collectively. What is the plan? What's happening? Because that's what we're missing right now. We really, this is all piecemeal, and so different groups of providers hear different information, and yet we don't talk about this workforce as one whole direct care or essential care or essential support workforce, and that really needs to happen.
So before you go, one question I wanted to ask, in terms of the folks who this would cover, the 125%, who should we be talking about? We should be talking about people who are known as DCWs, PSSs. What other initials?
What other alphabet soups? And I
Yes.
and I think yes, and I do believe that Anna Broom has a good list, and I know that Mallory Shaughnessy has also provided, or it will be providing an email on the behavioral health side. But what we do is everybody came together to talk about this bill, and so that included behavioral health, intellectual disabilities, disability, and aging came together to say, and nursing home and assisted living facilities. Everybody came together to say these same workers are doing essentially the same work, just in different settings and with different populations. And every time you pay one more than the other, you're creating an opportunity for the one that's getting paid more to be pulling workers over there. And we need to create stability in this workforce. We need to grow it and create stability in it. And so I'm saying DSPs, so all of intellectual disabilities, and in their group, all frontline workers in aging and disability, which are PSSs, homemaker, and home care aides, and there's a long list that are covered in this area. Adult day PSSs. So it's the same work, just in different settings. It's also in nursing homes, PSSs in nursing homes. So I mean, you get my idea. We're going to have to systematically go through and identify those people.
And that's what, we just started that work. Representative Lemlin, you had your hand up.
Yes, thank you, Senator. I have a question also before she leaves, and that is that, first of all, my comment is I agree that we have to increase this workforce. There's no doubt there. The question is how we do it. And do you honestly believe, in your professional opinion, that we are going to significantly increase the workforce by adding $1.50 or $2 an hour to what you're already offering, or these organizations, if they honestly give the employees or the new hires that increase, which I think a lot of them will, because most of them are, very honest companies. Do you really think we're going to significantly increase that workforce?
Well, I try to never tell a lie. So I will say, no, I don't think it will address the workforce. And I will say, I have been talking for some time with some folks about creating an essential support workforce bill that would move the state toward paying a livable wage for these folks, and a competitive wage, or alternatively doing a market-based study, because that hasn't been done. I really appreciate the horrible situation the state is in relation to the state of main care rates just generally. And they've tried to do a very good job of figuring out a process for establishing those rates, but without consideration of where we are with our workforce challenges and what the market is paying for people who work at Walmart, and people who work at Tim Hortons, and our unstaffed needs just in the commercial market now. These providers cannot compete for workers. And so we need to be paying a market-driven established wage. But if you can't, this is a place to start. I'm being honest. This is a place to start. Or you could pick an arbitrary amount of money. I don't know how to do that. It would be arbitrary completely to say, we'll increase rates $4 an hour for everybody. That's to me very arbitrary, as opposed to setting a floor for all rates, which is what this tries to do. I don't know if this floor is going to be adequate. So I'm going to answer your question honestly.
And I thank you for that. I've been a business manager and owner for 30 or 40 years, and I fully agree with you. And I think it is a difficult problem. I think there is a solution, but it's not an easy one. So thank you for your honesty.
Representative Connor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ms. Mauer, you had said something earlier that struck me, and that was if you're paying one higher than the other, then you're going to have the problem of them wanting to jump over there. I was speaking with a relative the other day who is a care worker in a nursing home, and she told me that agencies are paid far more than what they are paid. And it struck her as odd, and being in this committee, it struck me as odd. I don't know a whole lot about it. So can you speak to that? How does that incorporate in all of this? If we're reimbursing at these rates, but these agencies are still coming in and paying their employees more. Granted, I get the economics of it. They're just temp employees. They may not have all of the benefits that the full-time employees have, but is that something that we should look into and take into consideration as well?
I believe it absolutely is. And, you know, and I know Bill Monteo is here and he could talk more about the agency. The reason this is happening in nursing homes is that there's federally mandated staffing ratios. And so if the staff fall below, so you just have somebody call out, right? Then if you don't have an adequate number of staff, you can't operate. You're immediately in violation of federal law as soon as that happens. And so that's why agency staff are, you know, sort of the backup when you've tried to maintain a sufficient staff. You've got two people who call out, you need to be able to use agency staff, but there are laws in other states that have limited the use of agency staff. And conversely, we don't require that for home care. So we have all these people who are nursing home level of care who have chosen to get home care, who aren't getting home care, and there's no mandate to serve them. If the state had to be paying agency rates to serve those folks, we'd be talking about a big fiscal impact. So these issues, that is definitely an issue, but that's just my take on that.
Thank you. I appreciate that. That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. We've been joined by Mr. Stair, who I understand might be able to answer the question that was asked earlier about the contribution of the rate for wage rate in the calculations for overall rate.
Good afternoon, members of the committee. I appreciate you allowing me to join the work session this afternoon. The question that was asked was, what portion of the reimbursement rate goes directly to workers and what portion goes to the agencies? And this is in the context of if the rate were to be increased, how much of that would go to workers? And I'll echo a couple of comments that Representative Meyer mentioned, and then also Jess Maurer mentioned. I would just mention, I would say two things. First of all, agencies are in a competitive environment, not just competing with other agencies, but competing with many different labor sources. And so speaking on behalf of the Home Care Alliance, the surveys that we've done show that the Burns study that was performed back in 2015 and released in 2016 is still accurate today, where agency overhead tends to be in the 15% range, 14, 15, 16% range, and labor costs, which include both direct wage rates, the gross pay that goes to employees, plus benefits that go to them, tends to be in the 84, 85, 86% range. Now then, looking at specific positions, we can look at direct care workers that are per diem. Some different agencies have different wage structure. Some folks bring them on 40 hours a week and some have part-time. So there are individual models that some agencies use that other agencies may use. So it's hard to answer that question on a hard and fast basis for any individual agency. But across the board, that ratio of about 85%, 84, 85, 86% going to the workers directly tends to hold true across pretty much across the board, whether you're talking behavioral health, home health, direct care workers. And then the 15% agency overhead goes to run the organization. And we're doing everything we can all the time, of course, to keep that overhead down, because that's the only way to stay to offer a sustainable service. I'll be happy to answer any questions that are even more specific than that, if I'm able to.
I heard a slightly different question, but it may be the same one and I just don't know it. But
okay.
What I heard was when the negotiation happens for the rate that a nursing home is going to get paid or a residential care facility is going to be paid, what's the impact of the wage portion of that decision?
So with respect to facilities, they are operating under staffing ratio requirements. Unlike a a home-based or home and community-based service with a facility-based service where they're operating under staffing ratio requirements, those staffing ratios have to be maintained and cause them to take extraordinary measures to work with staffing agencies to fill vacancies so that they maintain those ratios. And they may have to take extraordinary measures that blow those overhead numbers that I just mentioned completely out of the water in order to get staffing to maintain those ratios. I don't know if that answers your question, Senator Claxton.
Yes, I think it does. It's hard to know exactly is the answer, and
yeah,
I understand that. Okay. So Anna, do we have a list of the folks who we're trying to include in the DCW new one, ESW category? Is that defined in statute somewhere?
Well, Bill's got his hand up, so I might, while you talk to Bill, I will pull up the section that I think he's going to cite. But I think you're also going to want to hear from Mallory, because I think she's got some pieces,
some other initials?
Folks to, yes, some other initials, exactly.
Yes, Mr. Monteo.
Thank you, Senator Claxton. I just would offer for consideration to the committee that the definition of direct care worker, which is in Title 22, 1812G, which Anna is pulling up now under item D, the direct care worker, be kind of what the committee consider as a basis as you're looking for a definition, so that we have some consistency in statute.
And as we tried to do this morning, we don't want to leave anybody out. So I don't want to leave any initials out, is the concern if we're going to roll these into a single bill that says this category of people, most of whom are defined as DCW, but also includes, are going to be recognized with a rate increase for their organizations. That's what I'm trying to make sure we don't leave any initials out.
And understood, sir.
Mm-hmm. So we don't have to get all those. Anna, are you pointing out something to us? You were screen sharing there.
I was just pulling up the section that Bill was talking about.
Okay, so we can use DCW as a placeholder for now, understanding that that doesn't capture all of the initial-lated people who should be included in the provision of face-to-face care support to individuals that we're trying to touch. Are people okay with that? Go ahead.
Do you want me to pull up the email that I got from Mallory and Betsy with those behavioral health?
Sure, we can see those. We can invite Mallory in.
Can you see that? I don't know how to make it bigger.
I can see that it's there.
Well, oh dear. Okay. It's probably a way to make it bigger, but I don't know how. I'm looking desperately for something.
I see section
Control plus.
Control plus. Okay. Control plus. Wait, what's the plus?
That's the plus sign in the top right-hand corner when you've for doing math calculations, which apparently you don't do. It's section 17.
I'm just going to treat that with ignore.
1729.
Yeah, so yes, it says 17, 28, 65 BHPs, MHRTs. I don't know what the heck an OQMHP is. And then there's section 13, case managers, section 92, children's behavioral health care coordinators, 92 and 93, SIPs and recovery coaches and patient navigators. And then it says crisis workers, crisis and warm lines. I don't know what an MSU and a CSU is either. Okay, that might have been a complete failure, but I don't know what to tell you. There's a lot there.
And we've heard that a lot of the people who are on that list wouldn't be impacted by this because they're already receiving above the minimum wage. Did I hear that correctly? Yes, that's what I understood. Okay. All right. So for right now, ESW, Essential Support Worker, and DCW are placeholders for whatever alphabet soup we want to add. Director Saucier? Whoops, you're still muted.
Thank you. Yeah, I was just going to suggest combining the two ideas, the one that Anna had earlier with Director Monteo's. If you use the definition to define that sort of direct client interface, which is there, and then you also include in your definition the sections of policy that you want this to apply to, that would be the clearest.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Yes, Ms. Shaughnessy, does that sound like a good way to go? Any other thoughts about that particular piece?
No, that's sounding much like where I would hope to be going. I could tell you the OQMHP is another qualified mental health professional. But yeah, so the ones that we sent are the ones that do that kind of daily interactive, supportive, keeping people in their homes, in the community type of work. So, and I think, as was just stated, making those kind of changes would be very helpful in the definition. And we can get you what all those alphabet soup mean.
All right. So of the elements of LD 1170, to come back to that, I see the long-term care workforce oversight committee morphing into a series of annual reports with the option for the group to write, for the responsible committee to write new legislation if necessary, which strikes some of the other portions. And we've talked about some definitions that would be more inclusive, and language has been more inclusive. And those are the major content elements of the bill that we've talked about so far before getting to the 125%.
So we're still talking about LD 1573, Senator Claxton.
I'm sorry, I'm just working on too many different bases. We're still on 1573.
Okay, thank you, because you said 1170 and I was lost.
That's why in the committee room, you'd be sitting right next to me and going, yeah, give me the elbow. Okay. Ms. Shaughnessy, is your hand still up?
Actually, just put it back up. When we're talking about the 125%, you've had a number of discussions around sort of how does that pass through to the worker? And what is happening right now is because of market pressures, many providers are already paying the amount that we're talking about, or maybe even higher, to actually try to secure staff. However, the rate that they're getting reimbursed for that does not account for that. So by getting a floor of 125% of minimum wage that's going to them to then pass through, it's helping offset costs that they're already expending that are putting them in the hole. So, just to kind of give you a sense of where, how that fits together. And they're probably going to give more than 125% because they have to.
Yeah, right. My 1170 was referring to the HP number. I got disoriented. Okay. So the question, it seems to me at this point, is do we leave the 125% here and expand this bill to include other categories of folks that committee sounds like they want to include? Or do we take the 125% out of this bill, leave it in another bill and combine there, keeping this one mostly language around, at this point, quarterly reports or annual reports for 5 years, admonition to include COLA, and leave out rebasing and 125%. That's the big picture as I see it. Any sentiments one way or the other? Yes, Representative Meyer.
I'd prefer to use this bill as the vehicle.
Okay, all right. So that being the case, Anna, do you have a pretty good sense of where we are with this bill right now with the conversation that's been had?
Some of it. I just want to make sure I understand. I got the oversight part, although I didn't know whether you deliberately included or didn't include the stakeholder idea. I think I heard the part about the definitions, which also has 125% correct. Otherwise, there wouldn't be any point to the definitions.
Yes.
And then you talked about the COLA, but not a rebasing. And I just didn't know when that was supposed to begin.
that, the rebasing, the request in the bill is 2 years. We've heard some suggestions that that's a little unmanageable, and that with the addition of COLA may be less necessary. I wouldn't say unnecessary, but less necessary. So can the committee live with leaving it as 5 years where we're already there?
Right.
I'm sorry, are you talking about, I'm really a little confused now. I thought you were talking about rebasing with COLAs in between, but
Yes.
yes, but when does the rebasing begin? Like, is that
Well,
5 years from now?
No, it
And the
began-
COLA
it-
starts now, or does the rebasing start? I'm just a little muddled
I
up
think
about.
the current wage study is the rebasing. And the next one would be 5 years from when we started that. Is that fair? Director Saucier, it started a year and a half ago, the wage study.
I would suggest that if you're going to include this language, it should be something like at least every 5 years. And then the 5 years would be 5 years from whenever the last one was done.
And the last one is the current one that is being operationalized. Is that correct?
Well, that's a tricky question because I believe Director Probert is preparing the priority rebasing areas based on recommendations from the report. Not all of the categories that you've been discussing today, I don't think, are going to be rebased this year. So bringing them all into alignment will be a challenge, but I think best to leave main care the flexibility to figure out how to get them all in alignment.
Yeah, and that's a concern, is that we've understood that rebasing adjustments will occur over several years. So I think of rebasing as an event as opposed to an ongoing process. And I'd like it not to be a years-long process that just never stops. Representative Lemelin? I'm sorry, Director Saucier?
Yeah, I think the vision is that each year they would do some for workload reasons and cost reasons and so on. And so that eventually, everything would be on a 5-year cycle, but not all in the same year. So some would start their 5 years this year, some would start their 5 years next year, et cetera.
So that rebasing by section would occur every 5 years.
Every 5 years, right?
And or at least every 5 years.
Yeah, I'm making it sound a little more simplistic than, so there are certain rates also that are recommended to just be a percentage of the Medicare rate, certain therapies and so on. So there will be a couple of methods, but I think the concept for sure is to have regularity to how rates are reviewed and what they're pegged to.
And the rebasing is specific to those that can be rebased. If we're using a percentage of main care or Medicare, we can't rebase Medicare. Okay.
Correct.
Representative Lemelin?
Yes, Senator, I'm sorry. I missed which bill are we attempting to use as the vehicle here?
1573. I misspoke earlier.
Oh, thank you.
Representative Griffin?
I just want some clarification about the stakeholder group. Does the stakeholder group include providers and like the long-term care ombudsman? I think that's important to have that.
So I'll defer to the department to answer that. Are those folks adequately are those folks adequately represented in an era when we're working real hard to make sure that there's no conversation about us without us?
We would certainly want to include providers and ombudsmen, and to the extent that we can get them, workers themselves. So we would look to have broadly representative groups of people, and I say groups plural because I envision this as, as the sponsor has described. There's a lot of moving pieces to this, so different aspects of it, like curriculum, will have a work group. Another piece of it will have a work group. They're likely to overlap, but I think we're going to have to spread out the work and spread out the stakeholder involvement. It will enable lots of people to be involved, which is a good thing.
Okay, thank you.
And it would be incumbent on the committee to look at the membership of the reporting body to make sure that it was adequate. And maybe that would be an opportunity to make recommendations or changes. Okay, so with the intent of using 1573 to be the HHS rate bill, what group do we need to pull in from LD 283? $17 and $65. Is that correct, Anna? Okay. And if we pull in 17 and 65, neither Representative Madigan or Representative Breen are here to speak to those, and they're so much similar. If we pull in that from 283, is there any role for 283 in our work? Any other? That really takes care of it. Yep. Okay. Yes, Ms. Shaughnessy.
Sorry, I was just going to say that takes care of what we've added in, and we've added in a little bit more that wasn't in that one, just to clarify that in sections 13 and 92, 93, but just FYI.
Okay. And in 878, that's an exhaustive list of sections and chapters that's included in that.
And that's the list that you're looking for, I believe.
Right. Yeah. So if that whole list got moved into 1573, and the language got adjusted so the language isn't specific to long-term care, then we'd be well on our way. And then 1157 was to address state and municipal wages. I'm not sure there's a place for that right now because we've already included all of the categories that we need to. So maybe that one we can consider tabling. And 1469 is from Representative Craven. That was the one that was addressed by Appendix K. Any suggestions about 1469, Representative Craven?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No, that would request for hazard pay for people. I have to go to another committee. I'm very sorry. But I won't be very long. So if you have something else to work on, I'll be right back.
Okay. And then LD 1267 is Senator Stewart's bill. And the goal there was to address section 29 with a COLA, but we've pretty much got that covered already. Are there any elements of those bills, not 1573, that we should be looking to pull into 1573 that haven't already been pulled in if we make that change? I'm not hearing anything. Any comments? Any additional information? So, yes, Senator Moore.
I was just going to say that looks good. I think we've got everybody covered.
Okay. Is that in the form of a motion to approve as amended?
I will make that motion not to pass as amended on LD 1573.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Is there additional conversation, discussion about this with the understanding that the amended versions are extensive? Does anybody have any questions about the amendment portion? Not seeing any. I'm delighted. And so then we can turn the vote over to Ms. Withy. LD 1573 ought to pass as amended.
Representative Zager,
Yes.
Representative Zager, yes. Representative Lemlin,
Yes.
Representative Lemlin, yes. Representative Stover,
Yes.
Representative Stover, yes. Senator Baldacci, Senator Baldacci is absent. Representative Perry, Representative Perry is absent. Representative Griffin,
Yes.
Representative Griffin, yes. Representative Connor,
Yes.
Representative Connor, yes. Representative Craven,
She left.
Representative Craven is absent. Representative Madigan, Representative Madigan is absent. Representative Javner, Representative Javner is absent. Senator Moore,
Yes.
Senator Moore, yes. Representative Meyer,
Yes.
Representative Meyer, yes. Senator Claxton,
Yes.
Senator Claxton, yes. That's 8 yes, 5 absent.
Okay. So I'll turn to Anna a minute. Yes, Representative Fay.
I just wanted to say thank you. This is very difficult work, and I really appreciate the committee digging into this and sticking with this. Thank you very much.
Thank you for bringing it here. It's been an enlightening process. All right. So I want to ask Anna that question. Do we have any use for 283 committee members? Then I would entertain a motion ought not to pass.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion of that? Then we'll have Ms. Withy record the vote. LD 283 ought not to pass.
Representative Zager,
Yes.
Representative Zager, yes. Representative Lemlin,
Yes.
Representative Lemlin, yes. Representative Stover,
Yes.
Representative Stover, yes. Senator Baldacci, Senator Baldacci is absent. Representative Perry, Representative Perry is absent. Representative Griffin,
Yes.
Representative Griffin, yes. Representative Connor,
Yes.
Representative Connor, yes. Representative Craven, Representative Craven is absent. Representative Madigan, Representative Madigan is absent. Representative Javner, Representative Javner is absent. Senator Moore,
Yes.
Senator Moore, yes. Representative Meyer,
Yes.
Representative Meyer, yes. Senator Claxton,
Yes.
Senator Claxton, yes. That's 8 yes, 5 absent.
And I'd entertain a motion on LD 878. Representative Meyer,
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd move that LD 878 ought not to pass.
I'll
Second.
second the motion.
moved and seconded. Any conversation, discussion? Ms. Withy, then you record the vote on this one.
Representative Zager,
Yes.
Representative Zager, yes. Representative Lemlin,
Yes.
Representative Lemlin, yes. Representative Stover,
Yes.
Representative Stover, yes. Senator Baldacci, Senator Baldacci is absent. Representative Perry, you are muted, Representative Perry. Still muted.
Yes.
Representative Perry, yes. Representative Griffin,
Yes.
Representative Griffin, yes. Representative Connor,
Yes.
Representative Connor, yes. Representative Craven, Representative Craven is absent. Representative Madigan, Representative Madigan is absent. Representative Javner, Representative Javner is absent. Senator Moore,
Yes.
Senator Moore, yes. Representative Meyer,
Yes.
Representative Meyer, yes. Senator Claxton,
Yes.
Senator Claxton, yes. That's 9 yes, 4 absent.
Let me jump now to consider a motion on LD 1267, Senator Stewart's bill addressing Section 29. Yes, Representative Meyer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would move that LD 1267, do I have that right?
Yes.
Ought not to pass.
I'll second the motion.
Thank you. It's moved and seconded. Any conversation? Seeing none, it's your turn again, Ms. Withy.
Representative Zager,
Yes.
Representative Zager, yes. Representative Lemlin,
Yes.
Representative Lemlin, yes. Representative Stover,
Yes.
Representative Stover, yes. Senator Baldacci, Senator Baldacci is absent. Representative Perry, Representative Perry is absent.
There, she's still muted, but she's present.
Yes.
Representative Perry, yes. Representative Griffin,
Yes.
Representative Griffin, yes. Representative Connor,
Yes.
Representative Connor, yes. Representative Craven, Representative Craven is absent. Representative Madigan, Representative Madigan is absent. Representative Javner, Representative Javner is absent. Senator Moore,
Yes.
Senator Moore, yes. Representative Meyer,
Yes.
Representative Meyer, yes. Senator Claxton,
Yes.
Senator Claxton, yes. That's 9 yes, 4 absent.
And somebody help me here. Representative Sosa, you're still here. I'm glad to see that. On LD 1469, that was to get hazard pay. And as I understood it, that was taken care of with Appendix K.
I think the reference there was to, in the supplemental budget earlier this year, you included about $19 million of Appendix K payments.
Okay, in that circumstance. Representative Meyer?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. 1469 may be an excellent vehicle for our PTOT bill this afternoon.
Okay, so we won't touch that one. Other than I'll entertain a motion to table.
So moved.
Second? Second. I think we can do this with a show of hands. All those in favor of tabling consideration of LD 1469, please so indicate. That's unanimous of those present. Thank you. And then that brings us to LD 1157, which addresses the issues of the municipal rate. I heard the sponsor asking for a solution to that, but I haven't heard us getting there yet. Any thoughts about 1157? Yes, Representative Meyer.
I would move that LD 1157 ought not to pass.
Is there a second for that? Okay.
Second.
Any discussion? It's been moved and seconded. Then Ms. Withy, we'll record the vote on LD 1157 ought not to pass.
Representative Zager,
Yes.
Representative Zager, yes. Representative Lemlin,
Yes.
Representative Lemlin, yes. Representative Stover,
Yes.
Representative Stover, yes. Senator Baldacci, Senator Baldacci is absent. Representative Perry,
Yes.
Representative Perry, yes. Representative Griffin,
Yes.
Representative Griffin, yes. Representative Connor,
Yes.
Representative Connor, yes. Representative Craven,
Would you please restate what we're voting on? Sorry.
LD 1157, the motion is ought not to pass.
Yes.
Representative Craven, Yes. Representative Madigan. Representative Madigan is absent. Representative Javner. Representative Javner is absent. Senator Moore.
Yes.
Senator Moore. Yes. Representative Meyer.
Yes.
Representative Meyer. Yes. Senator Claxton.
Yes.
Senator Claxton. Yes. That's 10 yes, 3 absent.
And as we talked about earlier, LD 1204 will be discussed on Thursday when we're talking about more behavioral health related rates. Representative Craven, while you were gone, your LD 1469 was tabled, thinking it might become a vehicle for PTOT legislation in the near future.
Thank you very much. I apologize that I got called just when that was coming up. Did we vote on 1573?
We did.
I would like
Ought to pass as amended.
I would like to vote to register my vote as yes.
Okay, so that looks like what we were supposed to accomplish by 2 o'clock. It now being pretty close to 3 o'clock. In lieu of, I do feel obliged to say a couple things. I want to recognize the advocates out there who've worked so tirelessly to try and help us come up with good legislation and a well-organized approach, and they deserve a lot of credit. I also want to recognize that this is an attempt to get the department more resources and a greater ability to do what it very clearly is committed to doing. And I want to thank Director Saucier for your willingness to work through this process over the last couple of hours and this morning's couple of hours. So thank you very much for that. And I think it also speaks to our recognition of the folks who are doing this work, having historically been undervalued, underappreciated, and wanting to do something about that. And more importantly, a very clear attempt to try and do something to support and improve the services to the folks who depend on us to do the right thing. So thank you all for your contributions in this effort. It's been prodigious and I think successful. Representative Craven?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I want to thank you and Representative Meyer for your patience and your inclusion and your very hard work. Thank you.
Thank you. And I won't accept that without recognizing that this was a team effort. And I appreciate that Senator Moore and Representative Griffin have worked with us throughout this whole thing too. So that's part of the reason that we've been successful in this measure. So thank you to both of them. All right, so in lieu of a 5-day break, how about if we quit until 3:15 and come back and hear some legislation? Okay, 3:15, we'll be back. So if Anna and Carrie are ready, we can resume our efforts.
You know, I lost the internet in that break. Scared me half to death that I wasn't going to be able to come back around again.
What happened?
We lost the internet and the power for a few moments and had to come back around again. It was quite scary, actually. I was like, what happens if I can't get in?
What's these power outages? I lost power yesterday. For a period.
I just lost power today too, but it was only half my house.
Isn't that weird when that happens, Representative? It's like half the house. It happens to us all the time.
Really?
I've not heard of that.
Well, yeah, you go and you go around the house and reset half the clocks, don't you, Representative Lemlin? That's what we do.
That's correct. That's what I just had to do. My son said, Dad, I just lost power. And I'm like, what are you talking about? My lights are on. And then I looked around and certain clocks I had to readjust and certain ones I didn't.
It's crazy, isn't it? Huh. So anyway, we have ambulance people in the attendees and also PT/OT folks. So I don't know which one you want to do first.
So let's start with the ambulance ones.
Okay, so I'm going to bring up the language first. I don't know if you want to bring people over while I'm doing that, but
I also want to introduce people because it's a new, a new crowd. Since we've moved on from solving the world's problems in the HHS, we can now move on to solving ambulance and PT/OT problems. So let's just go around and introduce ourselves. Representative Connor.
Good afternoon. My name is John Connor. I represent House District 58, which is part of Lewiston.
Representative Craven's back from wherever she runs off to.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm Margaret Craven, and I represent House District 59, which is also part of Lewiston.
Representative Zager.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hello, everyone. I'm Sam Zager. I represent District 41 in Portland.
Representative Lemlin.
Good afternoon. I'm Michael Lemlin. I represent District 88, Chelsea, Jefferson, Whitefield, and half of Noblesboro.
Representative Stover.
Good afternoon. My name is Holly Stover. I represent House District 89, including Booth Bay Harbor, South Port Edgecombe, West Port Island, and part of South Bristol.
Representative Perry.
Good afternoon. I'm Ann Perry. I represent House District 140, which includes the communities of Indian Township, Baileyville, Bering, Calais, Charlotte, Robinson, Perry, Pembroke, and Pleasant Point.
Representative Griffin.
Good afternoon. My name is Abigail Griffin. I represent House District 102, which is Glenburn, Levant, and Cadescig.
Senator Moore.
Good afternoon. I'm Marianne Moore, and I represent District 6. Okay. Sorry. I'm Marianne Moore, and I represent Senate District 6, which is all of Washington County, as well as Goldsboro, Winter Harbor, and Sullivan in Hancock County as well.
And Representative Meyer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm Representative Michelle Meyer, serving Southern Maine's House District 2, which is all of Elliott and parts of South Berwick and Kittery.
And I'm Ned Claxton. I represent Senate District 20, which consists of Auburn, Minot, Mechanic Falls, Poland, and New Gloucester. So we're here this afternoon for work sessions on a couple of pieces of legislation that didn't have specific public hearings on them. So we're going to catch up with some concerns about Medicaid ambulance rates and OT and PT rates for Medicaid. So we'll start with ambulance rates.
Okay, so just remember back to the presentation you had from Joe Kellner. This came out of an HCIFS study. So you asked me to go ahead and draft what they were looking for. So I'm going to bring that up now. I know I did send it to you, so I know you've seen it, but just for anybody else who wants to see it. So this is the language that would what am I trying to say here? This is the
bigger. Can you make it bigger?
Yes, I can. That I can do without. Here we go. Okay, so the language that so subsection 1 is existing law. It was just easiest to repeal and replace. So it's this Medicare add-on subsection 2 that is the new proposal. So this is in addition to the 65%, actually I believe it's 100%. The I can do this. I really can spit out a sentence in the right order. Currently, Medicaid rates for ambulance are tied to Medicare, and I believe they're at 100%, but this would add on the same rural, urban, and super rural payments that are available under Medicare. I can't remember off the top of my head what the percentages are, but I can find it, but I also know that Joe Kellner can tell you what they are. But it is basically just the subsection 2. And then they were also looking for a cost-based reimbursement work group. So this doesn't tell the department to adopt cost-based reimbursement, but it does tell the department to consider the feasibility and cost of implementing cost-based reimbursement for ambulance services for main care members. So this was the other recommendation that they had in their study that related to Medicaid, as opposed to the insurance side, which was where the rest of the study group that HCIFS were doing. So I'm managing to make a hash of this, but you do have Joe Kellner in the waiting room, and I think I saw Jay Bradshaw is there as well. So you do have some other folks if you would like to explore this further. But I was asked to draft what they were looking for, and this is what we have.
Very good. Thank you. Can you update us on what HCFIS did recently, in case there's anything we should be trying to be consistent with?
I believe that their bill, and I can't remember what the number is off the top of my head, but it relates to insurance.
Yes.
Solely. So they wrote you, I don't know where that bill is right now, actually.
It got passed. It got passed.
Oh, well, there we go.
And Joe can fill us in on that, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what they had asked you to do was the Medicaid side, because they didn't want to add a fiscal note to their bill.
Right. They let us do it since we're so good at that. Okay, we have a couple folks visiting us. Welcome, Mr. Kellner and Mr. Bradshaw. Glad you could be here. So we've been presented with the document that apparently you worked with Anna to draft. Just over a page about the add-on process and reimbursement for main care and Medicare rates. Anything you want to highlight for us, or anything in particular that we think important for us to know?
Sure. This is Joe. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. I had to join by phone, so you never know. Thanks for having me today. It's nice to see everybody. I will share that HCIFS did report out the bill as also passed as amended. Unfortunately, at this point, it looks like there still will be a fiscal note tied to that. So I will share that the purpose of putting this piece to HHS wasn't to avoid a fiscal note, but rather to make sure that piece landed in the appropriate committee. The fiscal note that exists on the HCIFS bill, which is 1258, relates to the expense that the main EMS office will incur for overseeing cost reporting, as well as what we're referring to as a pseudo certificate of need process, which obviously will come up for discussion later. So this piece of the legislation, as Anna pointed out, has two parts. One is to consider the ambulance add-ons the same way that Medicare does onto the payments that are made to ambulance services. Those rates are an additional 2% for urban services, 3% for rural services, and 22.5% for super rural services. So by way of an example, Limestone would be super rural, Portland would be urban, but there are several things that will give you pause, such as Millinocket being considered urban. Most of the towns in Penobscot County are considered urban. Much of Hancock County, Kennebec County, and Somerset County is considered rural. So as we look at the rates that are paid to ambulance providers and their costs, as we talked about last time, I'll be much more brief this time. We determined by looking through the MHDO data and the survey of main EMS providers, ambulance services across the state, that the cost basis for delivering this service overall generally tends to be 1.8 to 2 times Medicare, the lower in the more urban areas and higher in the more rural areas. The most rural areas in our state that benefit from the 22.5% add-on are certainly far higher than 2 times Medicare. Medicaid being at Medicare was certainly a big improvement in trying to make sure that services remain sustainable and avoid this crisis that they continue to face today. This is one additional step that helps with the viability of our ambulance services, but I want to make sure it's underscored and put in bold that this isn't a silver bullet. This helps, but ambulance services across the state continue to be faced with not enough reimbursement to pay EMTs, much higher than minimum wage, a critical workforce shortage, an inability to move patients throughout the state, and a struggling ability to cover the needs that are presented to them by the communities that they serve. So any additional help is great, and looking at especially recognizing our more rural services and a higher cost base that have the same fixed cost to cover through lower run volume. This speaks to that. So thank you for the opportunity today.
Thank you for working with Anna to get this in front of us. Mr. Bradshaw, did you have anything else you wanted to contribute to this conversation?
Good afternoon, Senator Clarkson. No, I think Joe did a nice job of explaining how the committee came through the process of this discussion with the insurance carriers and the pieces that are now before you for consideration. So very happy to answer any questions, though, that I may be able to.
Senator Moore.
Thank you. I just had a question. I wasn't getting my notes together fast enough. Joe, what were those percentages again for the rural, the super rural, and then the urban?
It's 2% for urban, 3% for rural, and 22.5% for super rural.
Thank you.
Sure thing.
Would that help in Washington County, Senator? Okay. Any other questions of this legislation or the two folks who've joined us?
I do want to make one comment, Senator Claxton. I really did appreciate the Excel spreadsheet with the zip codes and the being able to look and see what towns were what. It really did help to understand. Thank you.
Okay. I don't see anything. We have the legislation proposed in front of us. What we need is a vehicle if folks are inclined to continue down this road. Can I get a sense of the committee whether we're moving ahead with this? I can see some head nods. Yeah, okay. So one of the options, what's the best vehicle we have to attach this to or to use as its own vehicle? Anna? I've lost track of vehicles.
There's something ironic there. Well, I don't know.
I want to call Uber, but go ahead.
Yeah, as a person without a cell phone, I don't even know how to do that. You only have one bill left from today. I don't know how you plan to do this issue plus the PT and OT. I don't know whether you plan on rolling them up together, finding another vehicle. That's kind of your call. I don't know.
So Representative Craven, would you be okay if we use this vehicle, your vehicle 1469 to roll in this ambulance legislation and possibly some PTOT legislation?
Yes, I am. Thanks.
Great. So I think then I would take, we need probably to take that off the table. To add
That was
to
going to
it.
be my motion, is to take LD 1469 off the table.
Second.
Okay, I think we can do that by show of hands. Everybody who wants it off the table for discussion. That's unanimous of those present. Thank you. So at this point, we're still technically considering LD 1469. So we could go ahead and hear what the folks from the PT/OT world have to say. Before we do that, though, and before we lose our two guests, I think it's fair to ask for a division, which just gives people a sense of how the committee is going to vote. And we can just do that with a thumbs up. And I want to be able to give them some information. What's the inclination of the group in terms of supporting these changes for ambulance rates?
Good, yeah.
That's a unanimous thumbs up, gentlemen. So we'll then go to here's about some Medicaid PT/OT rates, and we'll roll those two things together. And it looks like that would pass the committee.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And I'm up with the PT/OT.
Thank you for your work. Thank you for your work.
Do you want me to bring up the PT/OT language while you're bringing people in?
If you would.
Okay. Wrong one. Okay, let me try that again. Sorry. Yep. All right. So this is the amended version from last year. This is what I sent you because I can't make it go down. There we go. So this was Senator Sanborn, not the one who's currently in the legislature, but the other one, Senator Linda Sanborn's amended version of LD 498 from last year. And this was a bill that set PT and OT rates at 70% of the federal Medicare reimbursement rate. I haven't gone back and looked at this in great detail, but what I do remember is because it took Luke and I quite a long time, we went around the barn a lot with the rates of this. And this is one of those services that there are like one or two codes that are used almost all of the time. And those were the ones that came out at the sort of 70% that everybody was expecting. And you can see, this is obviously last year's fiscal note, but you can see there what the general fund impact was. I think it's, yeah, that's the total of both services. So I know you had some people here from both PT and OT. I guess nobody put this bill in this year, which is why you're now sort of playing catch up with it. But this is approximately what we would anticipate the fiscal note being, you know, understanding that this is from a couple of years ago.
So we've been or will be joined.
Yeah, I believe Ryan Gallant and Gwen Simons, I know, were two. I don't know who
Jen Corbeil as well. She's a physical therapy facility owner.
Okay.
Let's wait till she gets here and then we'll welcome.
Hello, are you waiting for me?
Not yet. Not yet.
I cut out, the audio cut out right when I was joining, so I wasn't sure who you were calling on.
You went into the wormhole and then came
Right.
out, and now you're here with us. So good to see everybody. So are there folk, did you hear the update from Anna? So it should be pretty familiar. We're just pulling 498 from last year.
Yes.
Okay. And are there questions of the committee of the folks who know more about this stuff than we do? My only question is, are the codes used to cover both pediatrics and adult PT/OT? Because pediatric OT was, I knew them to be really hammered in terms of being under compensation. So that covers the breadth of PT/OT.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Representative Lemelin?
Yeah, I was just curious what the current rates are now.
So we're talking about for say arguably the key billing codes.
Correct.
Yeah, can someone just give us an idea about what those are like? Or as a percentage of Medicare, for instance?
I can do that. This is Jen Corbeil, Maine Physical Therapy, American Physical Therapy chapter, and also a physical therapist that works in the pediatric realm. I have both physical therapists and occupational therapists that are employed at my center. The roughly $12 to $13 for 15 minutes for the codes that are under OT and PT. They're not separate. They're all under, they're similar. They're the same codes. Different sections.
With the increase that we're looking at now, what would be the change?
Gwen, do you have that?
Based on, no, not the exact percentage of increase, but based on, I think what you just reported, if it's $12 to $13 per 15 minute, it's probably going to be somewhere around 20 to 25, I think, is the range that the Medicare rates are running right now, but I can get that information to you. Generally speaking, I think the therapist costs are being reimbursed right now at somewhere between about 40 or 50% of their actual cost to deliver the service, which under the rate that we propose is probably going to bump up to about 70% of the cost, if that gives you a little bit of an idea. The other thing I will update you on, which Jen may be able to give some clarity to, my understanding is there is a Medicare reimbursement reduction that just went into effect. So that might change those numbers that were in the fiscal note from the last time. I don't know how much. It was only a reduction of a couple of percent. Jen, do you know the actual amount?
It was 2%.
2%.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Senator, one more thing. So if they're at 12 or 13 now, and the proposed is 70% of Medicare, and you're guessing the Medicare is at 20, that would only move it to 14. Is that correct?
I don't think so.
Do we have the chart, Anna, for the code 97535?
I don't know. I'm going to look for that in a second. But what I can tell you is my understanding is that the main care rates are approximately 40 to 45% of the Medicare rate at the moment. And this would move it to 70. I'll go and look for the other thing in a minute, but I think that's closer to what you're looking for, Representative Lemon, some sense of where we are now.
Correct. That's what I'm wondering. I'm trying to find out whether this is going to be a significant enough increase. That's all.
So I'll jump in. My name's Ryan Gallant, and I'm an occupational therapist and the legislative chair from the Maine Occupational Therapy Association. I run 4 pediatric clinics throughout central Maine. Based upon the recent rate study by HHS last year, the OT rates, and I believe PTs falls right along with them, really right in line. We're at 33.4%. I'm trying to find my numbers here. 33.9% of the Medicare rates. And so they would be very close to doubling if we were going to get up to that 70%. So based upon this, if we were upgraded that to 70%, it would essentially double that rate from my understanding of the math. But so that's pretty significant. And in that rate study, they also indicated that both OT and PT were substantial priorities in terms of needing to be addressed. I think it's been over 20 years since these rates have been adjusted.
Does that answer your questions, Representative Lemlin?
Yes, it does. Thank you,
Senator
Ryan.
Moore?
Sure.
Yeah, the question I had was, what was the actual codes? I guess now it's besides the 97535. What are the other codes that we're looking at?
One of the ones that we use primarily is 97530. It's therapeutic activities. That's one of the primary ones we use. But I think from the rate study, I believe they were going to try to make them sort of unanimous across the board of 70% of the Medicare rates.
Okay. So those are really the only two codes then that are referenced?
No, they're all the codes for section 68, which is OT. And then for PT, it's sections 85.
And that's what the bill had originally in that 498. Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Right. Yeah, there's several codes.
Okay, thank you.
Representative Craven.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to congratulate Mr. Gallant for opening up a center in Lewiston, well needed. And sorry, your emails kept going into my junk pile. I've taken you out of there though.
Thank you guys very much for listening to us and giving us this opportunity. It's been a long few years, and it's hopefully we can make some changes to support our staff and some more kids and families.
You're welcome.
Long overdue. We tried last year. Anna?
Okay, so what we learned last year was that there were two codes that were 75% of all of the charges. And so one of those was the one that Ryan just mentioned, which was 97,530, and that is currently reimbursed at $1,260, and the Medicare rate is $3,860, so the 70% rate would be $2,702. The other one that Representative Zager asked about, 97,535, is currently $1,278. The Medicare rate is $3,331, and 70% would be $2,332.
So OT would double, more than
Yeah, they
double.
both basically double.
Yeah,
more or
they both
less.
basically double. Okay. Any other questions, concerns? All right. Yes, Representative Lemlin.
At first glance, doubling sounds like a lot of money, but when you figure in that it's been 20 years, I think it's well needed.
Thank you for that. And if we tie it to Medicare rate, that will go up as Medicare rates go up too. So we don't hopefully come back here in 20 years, God help us, and have the same conversation. I won't be here, but okay. So based on that, I would entertain a motion to approve new legislation mimicking LD 498 with the changes we've described for inclusion in LD 1469.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. So it's been moved and seconded. Are there additional questions for our guests? Any discussion amongst the committee? I don't see any. So at this point, we get Ms. Withy to run through and a vote. This includes both so this would include, as amended, this is 1469 as amended to include both the ambulance rates changes we talked about and the PTOT changes we've talked about. So that's the O2P ought to pass as amended. So that's been moved and seconded. We're ready to vote. So we'll go to Ms. Withy.
Representative Zager.
Yes.
Representative Zager. Yes. Representative Lemlin.
Yes.
Representative Lemlin. Yes. Representative Stover.
Yes.
Representative Stover. Yes. Senator Baldacci. Senator Baldacci is absent. Representative Perry.
Yes.
Representative Perry. Yes. Representative Griffin.
Yes.
Representative Griffin. Yes. Representative Connor. Representative Connor is absent. Representative Craven,
Yes.
Representative Craven, yes. Representative Madigan, Representative Madigan is absent. Representative Javner, Representative Javner is absent. Senator Moore, Senator Moore is absent. Representative Meyer,
Yes.
Representative Meyer, yes. Senator Claxton,
Yes.
Senator Claxton, yes. That's 8 yes, 5 absent.
So we just passed the legislation that we just passed the bill that would take care of this. Now our colleagues get to weigh in. And since it's hopefully going to be unanimous vote, some of that will happen automatically under the hammer. So we still will have a chance to review this when we get the fiscal note back. But it looks like we're headed the right direction. Yes, Representative Meyer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to thank my constituent, Jen Corbeil, for being here today and for her tireless advocacy for her profession.
Any other comments? We'll thank the three of you for joining us, and I would say this was successful.
Thank you.
Have a good rest of the day. All right. Thank you for setting that up, Anna. That went nicely. Anybody have additional business to try and get us to do before we adjourn? Yes, Ms. Withy, hi.
Thank you, Senator Claxton. I just have a few missed votes that I'd like to obtain if I can. I believe Representative Craven, Representative Stover, and Representative Perry just have a couple.
Okay, so if those delinquents would stay around, I'll stay around and we can get those votes recorded. So everybody else, feel free to adjourn until tomorrow. Thank you, everybody. Good day.
No, I can't remember even the.
She'll help you. She'll help you, Margaret. She's going to give you Representative Craven. She'll be giving you a prompt.
Representative Craven, I need your vote for LD 1267. The motion was ought not to pass.
Oh. Yes.
Thank you. I also need your vote for LD 878. The motion was ought not to pass.
Yes.
And LD 283, the motion was ought not to pass.
Yes.
Representative Perry, I also need your vote on LD 283.
Thank you, Representative Craven.
I might have more.
Oh, you have more.
Okay.
Yes, Representative
yes.
Perry. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
I thought I did. I think.
We'll just double check.
Okay.
The one on OTP.
Did Carrie, did you get my vote on 14?
We're working through those.
I did not, but I can put that down.
I'm sorry. I thought I voted before I took a phone call. So yes, that was ought to pass as amended. Yes.
Yes.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean
That's okay. Thank you. Representative Perry, I need your vote on LD 1573. The motion was ought to pass as amended.
Yes.
Thank you. And it looks like that is all. So Representative Stover, I'm not missing any of your votes, it looks like. But if I am, I'll email you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Everybody all set then with the votes as far as you can
Yep.
tell, Carrie? Very good.
Yes, thank you.
See everybody.